Hello, welcome to today's session. Alright, so as usual, we'll get started by going through the outlook of the markets over here, and then can highlight any opportunities available. Okay, first thing first, my observation for the week seems to be um, pretty volatile in terms of reversal, right? Where we see the market move in a particular direction and then kind of reverse pretty quickly and impulsively as well. Something sort of like if you remember earlier this year, we had some sort of a reaction like that as well. Where you can see over here, right? Dollar index push up very strongly and then kind of came back, somewhere early Feb, right? And kind of coincidentally, we are also in the early March period. But you can see again, last couple of days went up and then came back down pretty impulsively, right? So the chart here we're looking at is the dollar index. Okay. So of course, when we are seeing something like that, generally the idea is to be neutral, to be patient, okay? Because every time we see like impulses one after another, what we call a V-shaped formation, it's not something that would be ideal for trading, right? Because it's going to be difficult to be establishing a directional bias. It's difficult to pinpoint the entry point as well. So generally, that is where we are currently looking at. Okay. So if you look at dollar index, okay, as I mentioned just now briefly, we had this push up, and then this week here, it's where we saw prices came down, relatively impulsive in nature as well. So overall, I think right now for the at least good part for this week, we're probably just gonna stay neutral, okay? Because after an impulsive move, if we were to establish some sort of a directional bias, we either wait and see if we can get a corrective pullback or we see a crop. Okay, so what can also happen is price can easily just V-shape bounce back up, and then in that situation, we're gonna be really having to be more patient for some period of time. Okay, so dollar index, we are not likely gonna be looking to sell. There's no reason to be buying with this impulsive drop. Okay, if you kind of zoom out, of course, if you go to a higher time frame, I think the overarching kind of structure remains intact, where we have this as a WXY still. Okay, of course, can price comes back and retest this low area? Very possible, right? Because um, if you understand the crawl pattern or understand the diagonal pattern, the start of the diagonal often act as a key area where price can actually come back and retest. Okay, so if I just kind of highlight this zone here, right, and then zoom back in, what we then can look out for, of course, if you get a corrective pullback short term, we may be looking at one more push to the downside for the dollar, and then that will obviously open up a inner 5-wave structure development, right? Okay, something sort of like that. Okay, so if that's going to be the case, then of course we have an opportunity to see if we can sell it moving forward, right? But again, this part here, the only confirmation we're gonna get is if we wait, if we see a corrective pullback, right? Then we can look for a short-term sell. But if we don't see that, then we'll just need to really be patient, see how price gonna move, and update our analysis and outlook accordingly. Okay. So that's the take on the dollar index. Then of course euro dollar here is kind of pushing higher as well. You can see the V-shaped formation. Also invalidate that previous high. But I did share also, I think if not mistaken yesterday, that this high wasn't taken out yet, right? And oftentimes prices tends to do that. Obviously today it just took out that high, right? Okay. So prices tend to do that, and kind of mentioned that it's not something surprising. Okay, so as of now, if we look at the measurement over here using the Fib, okay, 1:1, we do have that upside a little bit more, right? And then that would complete this kind of channel structure. Okay, so again, I will be neutral, I will be patient and see how price is gonna react here. Right, again, if you see a crawl, that opens up a sell opportunity. If you see a V-shaped formation here, we'll need to just be more patient and see if we can get a confirmation of a corrective before the push down. Okay, looks like diagonal for euro dollar. Yeah, in a way, this can form a diagonal kind of structure here as well, right? So overall, I think at least for the good part of the week, we'll probably just need to be patient and let price develop further before we kind of get any opportunity to really focus on taking the trades. Okay, yeah, so that's my take on euro dollar, right? Again, if I kind of zoom out a little bit more, hey, the bigger picture perspective doesn't really change. Again, from this angle here, we have that key area, right? So zooming back in, that would put us between the 100% extension and the 1, 2, 3 area as well. Okay, so yeah, okay, be a little bit patient this week, see how the market is going to develop from there. Okay, then we have GBP USD as well, right? Which is kind of similar to, in a way, price is pushing higher, but this one here has the possibility of still acting as sort of a diagonal, right? You can call this an expanding diagonal kind of structure. I'm still neutral right now, right? It's not like immediately when sell, but of course, when this structure presents itself, we have some sort of minor low here. If the internal breaks, okay, with momentum and then starts to do a pullback, on the lower time frame, it becomes very, very obvious that we can actually capitalize on that push down, right? But again, we need some prerequisite to really kind of commit to that direction and sell trade, right? Okay, so GBP USD, again, if I bring, zoom this out to a higher time, kind of higher zoom out perspective, we have this area, right? We have this area. So we are technically kind of testing it, within that range. So again, key areas here doesn't necessarily mean immediately trading it, but it's definitely an area of interest. Okay, so just be a little bit more patient and see how things are gonna roll up. Okay, if you really want to look at like maybe the nearest clearest structure possibility of taking trades, I would say maybe Aussie dollar is presenting something, okay, where as of now the simple projection here can be this maybe pulling back as some sort of a flat structure, okay, or it can even be, the internals of this move down here is essentially 1, 2, 3, and then 4 and 5, right? And then we're kind of expecting a bigger pullback, maybe towards 50%, 6.8%, and then we'll look to sell. Okay, there is also that possibility where short term here we can look for the upside, but I think it's not going to be very, very attractive because the confirmation is price needs to take out this high. Okay, and I think by the time price take out this high, the immediate target area would not present a very nice upside potential for us to keep an eye on, right? But of course things evolve, right? So we need to definitely update along the way. But for now, the most straightforward way of looking at this here is a simple pullback. Okay, and of course if it's going to be like corrective in nature overall, we'll still be looking at the downside. Okay, so I think that's really nothing much in the near term for now, right? At least for this simple pass here. Okay, then we have the dollar CAD. Dollar CAD here may be opening some short-term sell. Okay, so this is something that on the lower time frame may give us a little bit more clarity, but on the higher time frame, what we're seeing right now is, if I bring this back up here, we have this very, very strong impulsive drop, right? And then the markets kind of pull back. If you look at this from the low, we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 possible structure. Then of course that would opens up a simple ABC pullback and then maybe another move back up, something sort of like that, right? Very, very possible. So we may have that short-term opportunity where we can look to sell a 3-wave structure. to the downside as a part of a retracement. Right. So if I bring you to the hourly time frame, right? Okay, we do have, I would say, not the cleanest ideal setup, but we do have elements of double top. You can call it double top, you can call it liquidity sweep, and then of course the inner neckline here has also been broken, right? So in terms of like SMC model, that will be a change of character. Okay, and if we start to see some sort of a bounce back up, obviously this is a fair value gap. Okay, that's a a supply order block. Okay, that would start to open up a possible sell trade opportunity. Okay, or sell trade setup, right? The higher probability setup, or the confirmation would come more of if price can actually take out this low, right? So I mean, if this just keeps going lower, take out that low and then only starts to pull back, that would be more conviction from the market, right? Then we can take this as a liquidity sweep. This is the break of structure, okay, and then the pullback here would be towards the fair value gap zone, and then we take the trade down, right? Okay, so roughly like that. So we'll see, okay, how the dollar cap price is going to develop towards the end of today, towards tomorrow. We'll keep you guys updated anyway, right? But for now, among the major pairs, I think this would probably be the closest one that presents something to be trading, okay? Dollar yen continue to drop. Again, you can see that. Again, we talk about how this broke it, right? But not without strong momentum. And ideally, if you want to buy, we want to also see some sort of a corrective pullback. But this drop is pretty impulsive, okay? So I don't really like that. Right now, price seems to be continuing the whole channel structure. Okay, and of course it managed to break that low, so I'm just gonna stay neutral and see how things are gonna roll out from here, right? So dollar yen, really nothing there. Kind of zoom out. The bigger structure doesn't really change much. We can still see this as a simple kind of a expanding flat structure, which means that this leg is still generally in control, and we can still look for upside eventually, right? But of course, this is like a very big picture perspective, right? So on the lower scale perspective, then we just need to see how price is going to react. Okay, but dollar yen near term, definitely nothing much. Okay, gold, it's currently still continuing upside with momentum. Not something that is ideal because we want to really see a corrective pullback. So what does it mean, right? It means that possibility of wave 4 completing might be there because we are seeing some sort of a V-shaped formation. Okay, so why a wave 4 here? Because if I zoom out a little bit more, you can see the high time frame, right? Okay, this would be your expanding flat structure ABC. Okay, so you have your 1, 2, and then 3 very, very significant rally to the upside. Wave 4 pulling back, right? Kind of talk about how wave 4 is oftentimes around that 236 and 81, 236 and 382, right? Okay, which comes into that, so that can conclude wave 4 may have been completed, and we might be seeing now wave 5. Okay, so from wave theory perspective, the simplest projection for wave 5 is you take wave 1 magnitude and assume that it's likely going to be the same, right? So kind of do a 1:1. Okay, so wave 5 would probably be somewhere around that area of 3040. Okay. The other way we can do a projection is we take from wave 1, map it to wave 3, and then we are expecting a 382 to 618 kind of projection, right? Which kind of put it even further to the upside. Okay, so kind of depending on how ambitious you are in your targets, but it basically range around that zone, right? Between close to 3,000 to 3,040. Okay? So this gives you a bigger picture perspective, and of course, if you kind of zoom in, what will give us that confirmation on that buy setup is a corrective pullback, right? Then you can start to expect some sort of push to the upside, continuation to the upside. So for now, I think gold, there's really nothing there. By tomorrow, the report, you see this probably gonna turn into a neutral one right now, right? Because of V-shaped formation. Okay. Yeah. So that's on gold, right? I think nothing much there at this moment. Okay. Silver here really depends again if we can get a clean three-wave structure, right? I think if we can get a nice little 1, 2, 3, then one more downside is still on the table. Silver and gold, as the bigger time frame or zoom out view, right, is very, very different, because gold is kind of threatening all-time high, whereas silver is really not, okay, because it barely even broke that previous high here, right? And the entire structure looks to seem like this is very, very corrective in nature. And again, from silver perspective, it's not surprising to see price take out that low, right, to complete this big structure here. So silver and gold may not necessarily all the time give us a 100% kind of positive correlation, right? Sometimes they can deviate from their relationship, and we want to trade and analyze according to what price is telling us, right? As of now, this would be the simplest, straightforward projection, right? Okay, so we'll see, right? Those are the key areas: 32.1 to 32.4. That will be the area of interest to keep an eye on. Okay. Crude oil continue to fall. So I think overall I'm just gonna stay neutral on this. Price is essentially testing, areas of previous zone. We'll see. Okay, so nothing much on that. S&P came down pretty impulsive again. You can see the V shape. Likely continue, its momentum to the downside. So I think this one here probably need to update a little bit towards the possibility of this as a big expanding flat, right? So if that's gonna be the case, okay, let me just clean up certain things, right? If that's gonna be a major expanding flat, then we can do some simple projection here as well. Okay. The 1, 2, 3 would serve as the expanding flat kind of like targets. Okay. Yeah, so that's the one right now that we can look into. Of course, if this forms a corrective pullback, then that would be an opportunity to sell it. So zooming back in, you still need to be patient, right? I think right now don't really have that clarity in terms of are we gonna get a corrective pullback or not, right? But I think short term here, with that momentum, probably more downside, but there won't be much of a setup as of now. Okay. Pound yen here, V shape as well. You can see, break to the upside, instantly kind of reverses. So probably gonna stay neutral for some time as well. Very, very similar to Aussie yen, basically coming down, right? So again, most pairs you realize that we are in an impulsive structure, right? Which means prices just end off impulsive because from yesterday until today. So a lot of this here will probably just stay neutral, and we need maybe the next couple of days to see how price will develop before we have some clarity on like whether to be buying or selling, and establishing our directional bias accordingly. Okay. Pound here potentially done with wave 3, very, very strong momentum over here. Possibly developing wave 4, but of course we don't have set up in the near term. Okay, we don't have anything there. So we'll wait the only potential or possible setup that we may potentially get is if we can get some sort of a fake break to the upside, close below the neckline, right? And then if this pulls back, we can look for short-term sell. Okay, but the odds of this, you probably need to be waiting for like a couple of days, right? Yeah, so this one here again, I don't see any potential short-term, near-term opportunities as of now. Okay, so that's on pound odd. Bitcoin very, very volatile as well. You can see that huge gap at the opening, and then the price just came back down, covering that gap, right? So I'm just gonna neutral because this is basically V shape after V shape, right? Came down fast, went up fast, came down fast. Nothing there. Okay. Dollar franc, euro franc, right? So some of you are asking, okay, dollar franc. I would say this is looking pretty much channel structure light. Okay. Yeah, so I would stick to that. Okay. 1, 2, 3 to potentially the bottom of the channel, the zone. And of course, if you're looking at this structure here, the invalidation will be this swing low, right? Price has to respect that low. Okay, Fibonacci is about 618, is around that zone. Yeah, so a couple of key fit areas around the zone. Okay, so the analysis of this here is to see if we can get some sort of a cross structure development nearer to the bottom of the channel. If we can, then that would be a setup to look for a reversal. Okay, so it can be a liquidity sweep, it can be a crawl pattern. You can look for the breakout trade to the upside. You can wait for the confirmation after price breaks and then the pullback. Basically, that's what you want to look out for in the zone. Okay, so this is dollar franc. Euro franc. It's just basically bouncing up and down, right? Yeah, I mean this pair here, I'm not in favor of looking at it at all. Okay, it's just not, it's not moving hugely, and it's just a pair that I personally don't like because of how it tends to be like, you know, not moving a lot, and then if you go involved in a trade, you probably need to wait for very, very long before you have an outcome of a trade, right? Because the market just doesn't gonna move much. Okay. I mean pairs like Euro franc, pairs like Euro pound, pairs like Aussie New Zealand, they tend to have that sort of a characteristic, right? You can see environments like that. Okay, not something I'm gonna be interested in, right? You have environments like, I mean, Euro pound generally so far seems pretty okay. Okay, but basically you have things like, you know, occurrence that often have something like this, you know, things like that. I mean, structurally it's not the cleanest to be trading on. Okay, so yeah, Euro pound, you know, basically cross pairs that have like both currencies are kind of closely correlated. You tend to have that kind of observation. Okay. For global indices, yeah, Nasdaq is performing very, very similar to the S&P at the moment, right? So it kind of broke that invalidation, broke that low. We probably need to reassess this, but I think overall there's still a little bit more downside. Okay, Nasdaq here is coming down as well. Probably gonna be testing off that 618 again. Yeah, there's nothing much on the index side of things, right? Things are just coming down pretty impulsive. Let me just scan through and see if there's really anything worth noting. Okay, maybe the FTSE may have something. Maybe Hang Seng may have a setup there as well. May, right? Hang Seng. Yeah, okay. So maybe the closest two indices, right? For those of you who are into like trading the indices, FTSE and maybe Hang Seng has a possible setup. Okay, I mean, FTSE here from wave perspective, we are looking at this as potentially completing wave 5, and therefore some sort of a pullback potentially towards wave 4. Okay, that will be the kind of forecast. And of course, if you go down to the lower time frame in H1, we are seeing that, okay, this minor low has been taken out, right? So momentum, if you can get a pullback, you can look to sell. From SMC perspective, we do have a little bit of a order block here, and of course, if you pull your FIPS in, 67 would align with that pretty neatly as well. Okay, so the only thing lacking on this setup here is some sort of a liquidity sweep, right? We don't have that element, but again, it doesn't mean that the trade wouldn't work, right? Again, understand the criteria and the elements adds to the probability, doesn't guarantee, a winning trade. So without that kind of like liquidity sweep, but you have the overarching higher time frame kind of bias and structure perspective, that might be enough, okay, for some of you to say, okay, let's take that trade, okay. I mean, ideally, of course, this continue to do correctively, right? You don't want suddenly the market just goes up with momentum. Now, obviously, that's a different story. Okay, so FTSE is one in terms of indices, and then Hang Seng here is a bit cleaner because on the high time frame you can already see, right? We have liquidity sweep, we have this break of structure, so a pullback here will be nice for itself. Another principle that we can also align with it is the fact that this has extended quite a bit, right? So market tends to pull back. Okay, if it's overextended, it tends to pull back before continuation and things like that. And we also can put in the confluence of a three-wave structure. So if this is going to be our first wave pullback, a correction here will give a second wave and then one more push, right? Three-wave down, then maybe after that continuation. So short term is where we can look for that sell. Okay, and of course on the lower time frame on the H1, okay, you can see all sort of a setup there, right? I mean, you can use this as a liquidity, right? And then we have this as a regular structure, okay, and of course this would be your order block here, and if you take FIPS, taking from swing high to swing low, 67 is there, right? And of course you can also see that previous minor high here can also act as an inner structure liquidity, right? Which means that if price comes back up, okay, breaking this previous minor high, taking us in, tagging our entry, coming back, that would serve as a liquidity grab. Okay, yeah, so these are the two indices that probably, if you're keen, can like kind of add it into your watch list, right? FTSE and Hang Seng. Cool. Okay, any questions? Any questions? Any questions from you guys? All good. Okay. So if there's nothing else, I think generally that's from me. Again, this week probably not gonna be having a lot of things on the table. Primarily, as I mentioned, maybe the euro, sorry, the dollar Canadian would be presenting something for us. Okay, going into maybe the second half of the week. Okay, so yep, that's all. All the best for this week. Let's see how things are gonna develop from here. Okay, and keep you guys updated along the way. Cool. Okay, so with that, see you guys. Good night.